Chapter 1699, A Man in a Responsible Position. Chapter 1699, A Man in a Responsible Position. Comparing backgrounds, the Soaring Heaven King Palace was a lot more powerful than the lineage of Star. In terms of abilities, be it the number of Almighties who were part of the higher-ups or the number of real gods, the Soaring Heaven King Palace had the lineage of Star beaten in both areas. As for their positions in the Sanctuary Alliance, the Soaring Heaven King Palace was at a much higher position than the lineage of Star, and this could be seen during the distribution of the token of the Fairy Palace's legacy every 30 years. During every distribution, the lineage of Star could only get one token of the Fairy Palace's legacy, while the Soaring Heaven King Palace could get two of them. Since the Soaring Heaven King Palace was better than the lineage of Star in every area, they could start a war with the lineage of Star right away. However, in the end, the Soaring Heaven King Palace Master's orders were imposing at the start, as he said that they would kill anyone who dared to stop them from killing Jian Wushuang. Indeed, they were also daring enough to kill the experts of the lineage of Star. However, from the start to the end, they only focused on one expert in the lineage of Star, and they had never threatened the lineage of Star for real. At that moment, they had suffered huge losses. Not only did they lose many experts, they had also lost many treasures. The most important thing was that they had lost a great amount of their prestige. According to the way that the Soaring Heaven King Palace had always done their things, they should have started a war with the lineage of Star immediately. However, in actual fact, the Soaring Heaven King Palace did not do it. After hearing Jian Wushuang's words, Hall Master Yuan and the two other Hall Masters looked at one another and laughed at once. Jian Wushuang, since you are already one of the Hall Masters, I can tell you some of the secrets of the lineage of Star. Hall Master Yuan laughed. That's right. The Soaring Heaven King Palace is powerful. Their abilities as a whole and their background are a lot stronger than the lineage of Star. However, even if more guts were loaned to them, they would still not dare to start a war with the lineage of Star for real. From the day the lineage of Star is founded to now, over so many years, the lineage of Star has only fought a war against a big powerhouse for real at the start. Although that big powerhouse was inferior to the Soaring Heaven King Palace, it was not different from them by too much. However, the lineage of Star scored a complete victory during that battle. Ever since then, all the powerhouses in the Sanctuary Alliance have dared not start a war with the lineage of Star for real. As for the reason, you can make a guess. Jian Wushuang frowned. However, his eyes glowed with a shrill light abruptly. Could it be because of the secret skill of Star Palace? Haha, that's right. It's the secret skill of Star Palace. Hall Master Yuan laughed. You also know that the lineage of Star has 4 secret skills. However, the most popular secret skill that caused experts from everywhere in the eternal chaotic world to be fearful is the secret skill of Star Palace. This secret skill is really frightening. Jian Wushuang had a puzzled expression. He was clear that the secret skill of Star Palace was actually the secret skill of 7-Star from the 7-Star Black Sect. Hence, it was a secret skill from the ancient past, and it ought to be frightening. Jian Wushuang, you have cultivated the 2nd volume of the secret skill of Star Palace. Thus, you do not need me to explain how powerful it is. As for our Palace Master, he has also cultivated the 2nd volume of the secret skill of Star Palace. When the 2nd volume of the secret skill of Star Palace is fully activated, his abilities will rise by 100 times straight away, and this will be maintained for a breath's time. Moreover, our Palace Master is an Emperor God. Furthermore, he is a well-known person among the Emperor Gods. With such abilities, if he were to unleash the 2nd volume of the secret skill of Star Palace as well, what level do you think our Palace Master would reach? Hall Master Yuan looked over with interest. Jian Wushuang was stunned. He was already a well-known person among the Emperor Gods. If he were to activate the 2nd volume of the secret skill of Star Palace as well, his abilities. Great Emperor level? Jian Wushuang said with surprise. That's right. It's Great Emperor level. Hall Master Yuan laughed. During the great battle between the lineage of Star and the big powerhouse back then, it became a one-sided suppression as the Palace Master unleashed the secret skill of Star Palace at the very start. As such, he killed 3 Almighties, which included 1 Emperor God of that big powerhouse with lightning speed. Therefore, how could that big powerhouse not be defeated? That's it. Jian Wushuang became shocked as he listened. He finally understood why the soaring Heaven King Palace dared not start a war with the lineage of Star. It was because of the Star Palace Master being a great deterrent. After all, although it was only for a breath's time, he possessed great Emperor-level fighting capabilities. Moreover, when the secret skill of Star Palace was used, one had to wait for a period of time before being able to use it again. However, the fighting capabilities that could only last for a breath's time were enough to strike the soaring Heaven King Palace with terror. As such, the soaring Heaven King Palace dared to take the initiative to kill the experts of the lineage of Star, and they even dared to kill the top geniuses of the lineage of Star. However, as for starting a great battle with the lineage of Star, in particular, a great battle where they would fight to their last breath, they did not have the courage to do so as they were frightened. Palace Master. A man in a responsible position, Jian Wushuang gasped in admiration. He is indeed a man in a responsible position. With the Palace Master keeping watch, the lineage of Star also has a high position in the Sanctuary Alliance. Even though we have provoked some strong enemies and powerhouses, no one among them can do anything to the lineage of Star. For example, many powerhouses were envious of us because of the priceless white blaze fruit tree that you obtained back then. However, no one dared to cast their greedy eyes on it. Although that was mostly due to the Purple Moon Great Emperor, those powerhouses were also quite fearful of our Palace Master. Hall Master Yuan laughed. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. Previously, he had not known much about the Star Palace Master. He only knew that the Star Palace Master was an emperor god with strong abilities, and he had founded the lineage of Star. Moreover, he was fortunate to obtain the secret skill of 7-star of the 7-star Black Sect. However, Jian Wushuang did not know how important the Star Palace Master was in the lineage of Star. It is fortunate for the lineage of Star to have such a super expert keeping watch. However, everything has its pros and cons, Jian Wushuang murmured. To a sect, it was indeed good for them to have a man in a responsible position. However, if the man in a responsible position did not have some experts who could bear some heavy responsibilities beside him, it would definitely be a disaster for the sect if the man in a responsible position were to fall. It would be even more of a disaster, especially if the sect possessed treasures that could catch the greedy eyes of many people and had also offended quite a number of experts from other powerhouses. Oh right. Jian Wushuang, there's something that I am very curious about. Hall Master Nai Yun questioned abruptly. By using real God Han Quan to threaten the soaring Heaven King Palace, you obtained many benefits from them. In particular, I understand why you got 100,000 doctrine gems and 500 years of training time in the Fairy Palace. After all, you need them. However, as for the demon cores, why do you need so many demon cores? Hall Master Yuan and Hall Master Jiyushin also looked over. They were curious as well. Jian Wushuang laughed at once. To tell you the truth, I wanted those demon cores so that I could absorb the pure power within them to make my divine power more powerful. An inverse cultivator like me is very different from a normal cultivator. At the level of a real god, the thickness of divine power is extremely important to me as it is the key to me making a breakthrough. However, relying on myself to train continuously and accumulate divine power is too slow. If I were to absorb demon cores, I could accumulate divine power a lot faster. Is that so? The 3 Hall Masters understood at once. If it's demon cores, the lineage of Star will have quite a number of them. Do you have enough demon cores on your hands now? If you do not have enough, I can give you some right away, Hall Master Yuan said. Chapter 1700 Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. Chapter 1700 Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. If it's enough. It's definitely not enough, Jian Wushuang smiled bitterly. He knew clearly that ultimate divine power water droplet would be more difficult to precipitate as he progressed further. He had obtained quite a number of demon cores from soaring Heaven King Palace. However, even if he absorbed all of them, Jian Wushuang reckoned he would at most precipitate 20 or maybe 30 ultimate divine power water droplets. He would still be far from the 100 drops needed to break through and become a Stage 3 ultimate real god. I just got many Grade 3 demon cores from soaring Heaven King Palace. Just to absorb all of the demon cores will require a very long time. So, I'll wait till I absorb all the demon cores before I come to ask for more from Hall Master Yuan, Jian Wushuang replied. Millimeter, tell me directly when you need it, Hall Master Yuan said. Actually, if it is about the accumulation of divine power, there are more ways to absorb them from demon cores. You can also use natural treasures, Hall Master Ji Yushin said. To be frank, my divine power is unusual. Any ordinary treasure for the accumulation of divine power won't be much help to me. Only some extremely precious natural treasure will be effective for me. Plus, I would require a terrifying amount of them. If I were to rely on natural treasure to accumulate divine power, I reckon even Lineage of Star couldn't support me, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. He wasn't joking about what he said. Previously, he had thought about relying on natural treasure to precipitate 100 drops of ultimate divine power water droplet. However, the price was too high. It was even higher than a white blaze fruit tree. He naturally couldn't live in luxury like that. We don't have any ordinary natural treasures and we couldn't support any high-valued treasure, but I have heard of a place that might be useful for the accumulation of divine power, Hall Master Ji Yushin said. Oh! Jian Wushuang immediately looked at Hall Master Ji Yushin. What place? Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. Hall Master Ji Yushin squinted her eyes. Of course, I've only heard about it from other people. It is said that an expert obtained a drop of absolute beginning divine power from an ancient battlefield. Then, she brought it back and it naturally developed and evolved into a divine pond. The divine pond is 999,999 jong deep. It is huge and it contains boundless absolute beginning divine power. Plus, absolute beginning divine power is extremely pure. It is said that the power is 10 times purer compared to the power contained in the demon cores. On top of that, it is much easier to absorb. There was one time when a severely injured emperor god, who was on the brink of death, entered the divine pond of absolute beginning and he resumed his peak state in 3 years' time. What? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Hall Master Yuan and Hall Master Naiyun next to him were shocked too. It was obvious that it was their first time hearing about divine pond of absolute beginning as well. As for the effect of the divine pond, an emperor god on the brink of death, he recovered in 3 years. He was an emperor god. The stronger one's power was, the more difficult it was for one to recover after injury. Jian Wushuang, you need to absorb a large amount of pure power now to accumulate your divine power. In eternal chaotic world, I'm afraid there is nowhere with purer power than absolute beginning divine power from divine pond of absolute beginning, Hall Master Ji Yushin said. Hall Master Ji Yushin, do you know where the divine pond of absolute beginning is? Jian Wushuang asked. He was very interested in the divine pond of absolute beginning. After all, if divine pond of absolute beginning were to be that impressive, his divine power could totally be accumulated to the maximum in the shortest time possible. I've only heard about divine pond of absolute beginning. As for its actual location and its actual owner, I have no idea. Hall Master Ji Yushin shook her head. However, there's a person who would likely know where the divine pond of absolute beginning is located. After all, I found out about the existence of divine pond of absolute beginning from him. Who's that person? Jian Wushuang asked closely. That person. He's a strange man, also a madman. He stays on Thunderbolt Island now. His name is called Mad Dog, Hall Master Ji Yushin said. It's him. Hall Master Yuan and Hall Master Naiyun were shocked. Mad Dog. Jian Wushuang was stunned and he immediately thought of a person. When he had first got to Thunderbolt Island, he met a strange elderly. The strange elderly had seen him and guided him to master his power superposition skill. His 10,000 wave skill was based on the power superposition skill. But after he had mastered the skill, the strange elderly had become unhappy and wanted to recruit him as his disciple. It was a pity that Jian Wushuang had rejected him. Then, Jian Wushuang had found out that the strange elderly was the strangest almighty in the entire Sanctuary Alliance on Thunderbolt Island. His name was Mad God and he had no other title. Almost everyone called him Mad Dog, but as they had scruples about his identity as an almighty, they would call him Sir God Mad Dog. Sir God Mad Dog liked to eat the most. Back then, Sir Godmad Dog expressed his interest in white blaze fruit and wanted to get a few white blaze fruit from Jen Wushuang, but he hadn't had any then. Jen Wushuang, do you know Sir Godmad Dog? Hall Master Ji Yushin looked at him. I do, Jen Wushuang smiled. Not only that, I also have his communication token. He offered it to me. Communication token? Hall Master Ji Yushin and the others were shocked. One should know that although Sir Godmad Dog wasn't a nice name, he was arrogant and obstinate. He behaved completely lawlessly in Sanctuary Alliance. He held no scruples against anyone and showed no consideration for anyone's feelings. It was naturally extremely difficult to get his communication token. At least Hall Master Yuan, Hall Master Ji Yushin and Hall Master Nai Yun definitely didn't have it. But Jen Wushuang did, and it had been Sir Godmad Dog who had offered it to him. As Sir Godmad Dog offered his communication token to you, it means that you shared a friendly moment. You can go and ask him, Hall Master Ji Yushin smiled. Millimeter, Jen Wushuang nodded, then he suddenly turned to look at Hall Master Yuan and said, speaking of Sir Godmad Dog, I nearly forgot about this. He is very interested in white blaze fruit. Hall Master Yuan, is there a white blaze fruit left in Lineage of Star? There are a few more and it will not be too long until the next fruiting of white blaze fruit tree. How many do you need? Hall Master Yuan asked. 2 will be enough. Sir Godmad Dog is only a greedy eater. He isn't using it for cultivation, Jen Wushuang smiled. Sure. After the banquet ends, I'll get them for you, Hall Master Yuan promised. In the lofty hall, the banquet was still ongoing. Then, Hall Master Yuan suddenly stood up and raised his glass. His loud and bright voice reverberated in the hall. Come on, everyone, let us toast Hall Master Wushuang. Everyone in the hall stood up simultaneously. Cheers. After eating and drinking, the banquet ended. Chapter 1701, Playing Tricks. Chapter 1701, Playing Tricks. The moment the banquet ended, Hall Master Yuan gave Jen Wushuang 2 white blaze fruits. Jen Wushuang took out the transmission token straight away. Sir Godmad Dog, Jen Wushuang said with respect. After some time, Sir Godmad Dog replied, Jen Wushuang, I heard that a little kid like you currently possesses the fighting capabilities of a Sir God. Moreover, you are ranked first in the real God ranking list. How impressive. Back then, I really did not misjudge you. However, it's a pity that you were unwilling to be my disciple. If not, I would have the right to brag. Sir Godmad Dog, please don't make fun of me. Jen Wushuang laughed and asked, where are you now? Are you in the Thunderbolt Island? No, no. I have just come out of Thunderbolt Island and I am about to reach the Holy Kingdom of Darklight, Sir Godmad Dog said. The Holy Kingdom of Darklight? Jen Wushuang's expression changed. He had some impression of the Holy Kingdom of Darklight. It was a holy kingdom that was not too far away from the 10 sanctuaries. I will set off now to go to where you are, Jen Wushuang said. Why? Are you finding me for something? Sir Godmad Dog questioned with doubt. It's nothing much. Back then, didn't you ask me to get you some white blaze fruits? I have just gotten them and I am specially sending them over to you, Jen Wushuang laughed. Haha, I appreciate the sentiment. I will be waiting for you in the Holy Kingdom of Darklight, Sir Godmad Long laughed heartily. After terminating the transmission and knowing the whereabouts of Sir Godmad Dog, Jen Wushuang did not waste any time and he headed to the Holy Kingdom of Darklight immediately. The Holy Kingdom of Darklight was a normal holy kingdom in the eternal chaotic world. In particular, there were border areas in a region and they had been ruled by a powerhouse known as the Dark Sky Fortress for many years. In a giant mountain range. Slap, slap. Sounds of a whip hitting flesh could be heard. At the same time, painful cries could be heard. Move faster. You are so slow. Are you looking to die? Some black-armored soldiers were ordering many cultivators to dig for gems. There were many cultivators and their numbers amounted to more than tens of thousands of them. Most of them were heaven masters. However, a small number of them were universe gods. They had all been captured and brought over by the Dark Sky Fortress with force. After being brought to their current location, They lived their days out so miserably that it was at the point where they were better off dead than living. Although the cultivators were filled with anger and grievance, they could not show them. After all, to them, the dark sky fortress was too powerful and it was a huge monster. All of a sudden, while a big group of black-armored soldiers were gathered together, a purple-robed middle-aged man who was more than 2 meters tall walked over. Upon seeing the purple-robed middle-aged man, although many cultivators who were doing hard labor below were gnashing their teeth with hatred, they had no choice but to lower their heads. The purple-robed middle-aged man was the fortress master of the Dark Sky Fortress, who was also an overlord of the whole holy kingdom of Dark Light. The Dark Sky Fortress master descended in front of a cave which had a seal on it, was at the center at the mountain range and was also guarded by many soldiers. How is the progress? The Dark Sky Fortress master looked at a soldier beside him. Fortress master, everything has been smooth, the soldier answered. All right, the Dark Sky Fortress master nodded his head. After that, he entered the cave alone. The Dark Sky Fortress master walked deep into the cave. Over there was a center which was filled with black air and the center was filled with pitch-black vines. On top of the vines, there was a pitch-black fruit which was emitting a sweet smell. The fruit was also the size of the head of a baby. Upon seeing the fruit, the Dark Sky Fortress master's eyes filled with excitement. Haha, by using the hatred of many cultivators as nutrients, the speed of growth the resentful soul fruit has indeed risen greatly. It will be done soon. In at most 10 years' time, this fruit will fully ripen. At that time, the Dark Sky Fortress master became extremely excited while thinking about it. He had found the fruit a long time ago. However, when he had first found it, the fruit was still extremely far away from ripening. As such, he had intentionally caught many cultivators and brought them to this area so that he could use their hatred to accelerate the growth of the fruit continuously. For the fruit, he had paid an extremely huge price. However, as long as the fruit was able to completely ripen, the price that he paid would be worth it. It's a resentful soul fruit. Just one of them alone is probably worth more than the possessions of many chaotic real gods, the Dark Sky Fortress master was muttering to himself. However, something strange occurred abruptly. All of a sudden, a part of the void broke open. After that, an old, yellowish palm came out from the void and grabbed the pitch-black fruit. The palm then plucked the fruit straight away. Under the panicked eyes of the Dark Sky Fortress master, the pitch-black fruit was plucked by the palm. After that, the palm shrank violently and disappeared. The Dark Sky Fortress master became stupefied where he stood and a weird laugh rang in his ears. Hehe, thank you very much. The Dark Sky Fortress master stared with so much anger that his eyes were about to tear apart. Who is it? Who is it? Quick, find him. Find this person immediately. I want his body torn into thousands of pieces. The Dark Sky Fortress master's roaring voice, which was filled with an infinite amount of anger, resounded through the gigantic mountain range. The mountain range also went into an uproar at once and countless soldiers of the Dark Sky Fortress started to search crazily. Just then, 2 figures were standing in a void somewhere in the mountain range. One of them was a strange old man who wore tattered clothes and was in a complete mess. He also wore a neckband which was filled with white bones. At that time, he was holding a pitch-black fruit and laughing arrogantly. Sir Godmad Dog, that's merely a resentful soul fruit. If you need it, I have one with me and I can give it to you. Hence, why did you exert so much effort to play tricks on those people? Jian Wushuang, who was carrying a long sword on his back, asked with a puzzled expression. Hehe, Jian Wushuang, you don't know about me. I love to eat and I am fond of foods that are very valuable and rare. However, when eating, I like the flustered and exasperated look of someone whose item has been secretly eaten by me even more. Sir Godmad Dog laughed strangely. For example, this resentful soul fruit is merely worth 100 to 200 doctrine gems. To either of us, it is considered nothing. However, to the Dark Sky Fortress master, this treasure is like his life savings. Thus, it would be weird if he did not go crazy from anger if I were to steal this resentful soul fruit under his nose. And I like to see him go crazy. Haha, this is really interesting. As Sir Godmad Dog spoke, he raised the pitch-black fruit in his hands and took a bite. After that, He ate the pitch-black fruit with great relish. Its taste is really not too bad, Sir God-Mad Dog said willfully. Upon seeing that, Jian Wushuang shook his head. In this world, there were many kinds of people. Sir God-Mad Dog was a true lunatic and everyone knew that. However, Jian Wushuang also knew that Sir God-Mad Dog's crazy and strange way of doing things was definitely related to what he had experienced in the past. After all the Almighties paid close attention to their prestige and only Sir God-Mad Dog did not care about it in the slightest bit. It was even to the point that his name was Mad Dog. Looking at just that point alone, he was unique among the Almighties. Chapter 1702, Can't Enter. Chapter 1702, Can't Enter. Jian Wushuang, where's the white blaze fruit that you brought for me? Sir God-Mad Dog looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang smiled. He flipped his wrist and took out 2 white blaze fruits. 2. Sir God-Mad Dog beamed with joy. Not bad, not bad. Sir God-Mad Dog put the 2 white blaze fruits into his Chen Ku ring. Then, he said leisurely, young man, tell me then. Why did you look for me? Jian Wushuang was dumbfounded. Sir God-Mad Dog behaved like a crazy man but, in actual fact, he was shrewd. He knew that Jian Wushuang needed help as he had looked for him and brought him 2 white blaze fruits. I really do need help from Sir God-Mad Dog. It's regarding the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, Jian Wushuang said. Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning? Sir God-Mad Dog's eyes fixed. He was originally enjoying the resentful soul fruit with appetite and relish but he suddenly paused. Don't tell me you're planning to go to Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning? Sir God-Mad Dog said. I do have this plan in mind, Jian Wushuang smiled and didn't hide it. TSK. It's useless. Even if you plan to, you can't enter Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, Sir God-Mad Dog continued to eat the fruit. Why? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. This, Sir God-Mad Dog was going to explain. Finally found him. An angry roar suddenly spread from the void before. Dark Sky Fortress Master led his troop of black-armored soldiers behind him and plunged towards Jian Wushuang and Sir God-Mad Dog. The eyes of Dark Sky Fortress Master gave out flagrant murderous intention. Especially when he saw the half-eaten resentful soul fruit in Sir God-Mad Dog's hand, his eyes turned bloodshot and red. Old man, how dare you take my resentful soul fruit? I want you dead and I'll crush you into ashes today. Dark Sky Fortress Master's roar shook the sky. Sir God-Mad Dog couldn't be bothered. He even intentionally took another bite of the resentful soul fruit in front of Dark Sky Fortress Master and then threw the rest away. Heh, I'll give it back to you then. Give it back to me. You've almost finished it and you'll give it back to me? Dark Sky Fortress Master was raging with anger. Die. An outstanding aura was released from Dark Sky Fortress Master's body. The aura had already reached the level of an eternal real god. An eternal real god was definitely a superb existence of overlord level in Holy Kingdom. Some kings of Holy Kingdoms were merely on that level as well. At such a level, they were like ants before Jian Wushuang and Sir God-Mad Dog. Looking at the Dark Sky Fortress Master charging at them, Jian Wushuang's face turned cold. Go away. There was a low bellow. The voice was low but it shook the hearts of the Dark Sky Fortress Master and the black-armored soldiers behind him like a clap of loud thunder. Dark Sky Fortress Master, who was originally angry and wanted to kill Sir God-Mad Dog, suddenly stiffened. There was an unprecedented fear in his eyes. He stared at Jian Wushuang as his heart grew numb. Jian Wushuang had already reached the level of Stage 2 Ultimate Real God. His divine power and divine body were of the level of an almighty. His power was naturally of almighty level. Just how strong and powerful would his low bellow be? Dark Sky Fortress Master could only feel that his divine body was going to explode from the roar. He could feel that the young man carrying a sword on his back could kill him countless times with one thought. If he felt so, the black-armored soldiers behind him were even more terrified. I'm sorry, mister. We shall leave immediately. Go now. Dark Sky Fortress Master had no more temper. His earlier anger had vanished into thin air. He immediately led his troops and ran away quickly. When the people had left, Jian Wushuang looked at Sir God-Mad Dog again, Sir God Mad Dog, you said I can't enter divine pond of absolute beginning, why? Don't panic, Sir God Mad Dog waved and an ancient green spaceship appeared in the void before them. Let's go, we will talk on the spaceship. Let's move as we talk. Millimeter, Jian Wushuang nodded. The two of them immediately got onto the spaceship. Sir God Mad Dog drove the spaceship and plunged outside of Holy Kingdom of Dark Light. In the cabin, Jian Wushuang and Sir God Mad Dog sat opposite one another as they chatted. Jian Wushuang, as you heard about Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, you definitely know the origins of Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, right? Sir God Mad Dog asked. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. It is said that an expert retrieved a drop of power of absolute beginning from an ancient battlefield. Then, it developed and evolved into Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. Millimeter, that's true, but you must understand that the evolution of power of absolute beginning took a very long time. From the one drop of divine power in the beginning to a divine pond, God knows how many years it took, Sir God Mad Dog started to explain. In the end, the divine pond of absolute beginning got bigger and the effect got more shocking. There was a rumor that said that a severely injured emperor god had entered the divine pond of absolute beginning and resumed his peak in 3 years. That's true because I saw it with my own eyes. However, although the emperor god resumed his peak, he expanded the power of absolute beginning in the divine pond of absolute beginning for 3 years. After such expense, divine pond of absolute beginning would need at least tens of thousands of years of evolution until it could be recovered. That's why the emperor god paid a price that equaled half of his possessions. Half his possessions? Jian Wushuang stunned. Emperor God was the level of a star palace master. In the eternal chaotic world, a super expert that was second to the great emperor. Such a top expert had shockingly great possessions, far beyond what Jian Wushuang could imagine. However, merely recovering in the divine pond of absolute beginning for 3 years had cost him half of his possessions. The price was too high. It's so even for Emperor God. As for you, Sir God Mad Dog looked at Jian Wushuang. Young man, you are an inverse cultivator. If you were to make a trip to divine pond of absolute beginning and expend power of absolute beginning, I reckon it shouldn't be any less than for the Emperor God. From what I know, a long time ago, when real God Wu Bei was still alive, he once found the owner of divine pond of absolute beginning, Sir God Luo Sha, and he offered a great price and talked terms with Sir God Luo Sha. Sir God Luo Sha had originally thought he was just a real god, and even as an inverse cultivator, he would at most take a year's or 2 years' worth of power of absolute beginning from divine pond of absolute beginning. Then, he agreed. But in the end, real god Wu Bei stayed in divine pond of absolute beginning for 8 years. He also absorbed 8 years of power of absolute beginning and never came out. Sir God Luo Sha was furious and he chased real god Wu Bei out by force. After that incident, when Sir God Luo Sha found out how much power of absolute beginning from divine pond of absolute beginning he lost, he nearly killed real god Wu Bei. Chapter 1703 Huge Price. Chapter 1703 Huge Price. What Sir Dog Mad Dog said had shaken Jian Wushuang. An inverse cultivator required an accumulation of divine power when they were at the level of real God. It was an accumulation of extravagantly extensive divine power. 100 drops of ultimate divine power water droplet were harder to precipitate at the later stage. Jian Wushuang had massacred so many star demons in the 8th layer and collected so many demon cores, but he had only managed to precipitate 10 drops of ultimate divine power water droplet with difficulty and broken through to become a stage 2 ultimate real god. The remaining ultimate divine power water droplet required absorption of a terrifyingly extensive amount of pure power. An emperor god had absorbed 3 years' worth of power of absolute beginning in divine pond of absolute beginning until he fully recovered to his peak. Even if an inverse cultivator were to stay in divine pond of absolute beginning for 5 to 10 years, his ultimate divine power might not be able to reach a saturation point, which was when he would break through and become stage 3 ultimate real god. Real god Wu Bei stayed in divine pond of absolute beginning for 8 years. But in the end, he obviously had yet to reach his limit before he was chased out by Sir God Luo Sha by force. With the lesson of real god Wu Bei, tell me, would the controller of divine pond of absolute beginning Sir God Luo Sha, let you enter divine pond of absolute beginning? Sir God Mad Dog said with a spurious smile. Jian Wushuang heard and smiled bitterly. Is there no way at all? Jian Wushuang asked. Whether or not is there a way, we shall see after we meet Sir God Luo Sha, Sir God Mad Dog said. Millimeter, Jian Wushuang nodded. He knew that it was useless no matter how much Sir God Mad Dog and him talked. After all, the divine pond of absolute beginning was in the control of Sir God Mad Dog. The conditions that he had to fulfill and the price he had to pay to enter divine pond of absolute beginning would be determined by Sir God Luo Sha. An ancient green spaceship traveled at fast speed in the void. The speed was terrifyingly fast. Jian Wushuang and Sir God Mad Dog were on the spaceship. They dined and chatted. Occasionally, Jian Wushuang would absorb some demon cores. 60 years later, the green spaceship arrived at a remote dark void. In the dark void, there were layers of prohibition and vast fog. The space-time was unique too. Unless one knew the background of the void, there wouldn't be anyone who would barge into the void. In the middle of the dark void, there was a piece of floating land. The size of the land wasn't big, it was only about 100,000 miles, including mountains and rivers. The scenery was like a painting, was like land of peach blossom. This is where Sir God Luo Sha resides. Jian Wushuang looked at the piece of floating land. This is so secretive. Humph, Sir God Luo Sha is eccentric and unsociable. Although she is one of the members of Sanctuary Alliance, she almost never visits Thunderbolt Island and she hardly gets in contact with the experts from Sanctuary Alliance. There are even many experts that didn't know of her existence. She has been living in seclusion. There are less than 10 people from the entire Sanctuary Alliance who know her residence place, Sir God Mad Dog said. In Sanctuary Alliance, there should be quite a few experts who live in seclusion like Sir God Luo Sha, right? Jian Wushuang asked curiously. There are some and there are quite a few of them, Sir God Mad Dog said. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows but he wasn't surprised. At that moment, in the middle of the prohibition surrounding the piece of land in front of them, there was a space tunnel that appeared from nowhere. It was obvious that Sir God Luo Sha had known that they were arriving long ago. Come on, let's head in. Sir God Mad Dog led the way and entered the space tunnel together with Jian Wushuang. In the scroll painting-like world on the piece of floating land, there was a simple bamboo house. Before the bamboo house, there was a stone table. Then, there was a silver-haired old lady in a simple robe sitting as she weaved a bamboo basket. Old witch, long time no see, Sir God Mad Dog was casual in his manner. He came before the bamboo house and sat down on the stone stool right opposition the silver-haired old lady as Jian Wushuang stood next to him. Hearing Sir God Mad Dog's greetings, Sir God Luo Sha wasn't angry. Old Mad Dog, you don't look for food but came to my place, what for? I don't have anything for you to eat here. Haha, I know you don't have anything delicious. I don't even bother to come and look for you, Sir God Mad Dog replied casually. Oh. Sir God Luo Sha was surprised. Then, she turned to look at Jian Wushuang. This is Jian Wushuang. Greetings, Sir God Luo Sha. Jian Wushuang bowed politely. Jian Wushuang? Sir God Luo Sha looked calm. I have not kept in touch with the outside world for very long and I have never heard of your name. Let me ask around. Sir God Luo Sha took out a token and sent a message to ask. In a short while, she received information about Jian Wushuang. I see. You're from lineage of Star and you're in the first place on Real God ranking list. You are quite famous, Sir God Luo Sha looked surprised. Then, she asked, I wonder what's the purpose of your visit today? I am coming for the divine pond of absolute beginning. Jian Wushuang didn't beat around the bush. Sir God Luo Sha wasn't surprised and she continued to weave her bamboo basket while she said calmly, as Mad Dog has brought you here, he should have told you some stories. Do you think that after what happened with real God Wu Bei, I would let you, an inverse cultivator, enter divine pond of absolute beginning? Sir God Luo Sha, in this world, no matter what the incident is, there is space for negotiation. Divine pond of absolute beginning will be really extremely helpful to me but I have no idea what price I have to pay in order to enter and absorb power of absolute beginning to my heart's content. Jian Wushuang said solemnly. The last time real God Wu Bei entered, he stayed there for 8 years. I had to chase him out by force. If I hadn't, even if he had stayed there for 10 years, the divine power in his body might not have reached his limit. An inverse cultivator absorbing 10 years' worth of divine power wantonly, just how extensive would be the amount of power of absolute beginning absorbed? You can't afford the price, Sir God Luo Sha said. Sir God Luo Sha, if you don't make it clear, how will I know if I can afford it? Jian Wushuang said. He, you're so stubborn. I'll be straightforward with you then. I heard that lineage of star has got a white blaze fruit tree. Sir God Luo Sha looked at him. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. The white blaze fruit tree was what he had gotten. That's simple. If you have the ability to give the white blaze fruit tree that you gave lineage of star to me, I will let you stay in divine pond of absolute beginning for 10 years, Sir God Luo Sha said. What? Jian Wushuang looked strained. He had known since long ago that Sir God Luo Sha would ask for a huge price, but he had never expected it to be that huge. A white blaze fruit tree? One should know that the white blaze fruit tree was something that all forces cast greedy eyes over. Plus, even if he brought a white blaze fruit tree, he could only stay in divine pond of absolute beginning for 10 years. In 10 years, Jian Wushuang wasn't sure if he could accumulate ultimate divine power to his extreme limit. Chapter 1704, Sir God Luo Sha's Enmity. Chapter 1704, Sir God Luo Sha's Enmity. Although I was the one who got the white blaze fruit tree, it is extremely useful to lineage of star. I can't exchange a white blaze fruit tree for an opportunity to enter divine pond of absolute beginning. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes. Sir God Luo Sha, is there no other possibility? Another possibility? Yes, Sir God Luo Sha suddenly looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, I read the information recorded on Real God ranking list. It is said that you once injured Sir God Chen Lan. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. Sir God Chen Lan is an almighty from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Why would he fight with you? Sir God Luo Sha asked. It was because, when I was wandering in the 8th lair, I killed one expert after another from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Jian Wushuang briefly shared his story of the 8th lair. Actually, many experts in Eternal Chaotic World knew about the story. However, as Sir God Luo Sha was secluded from the outside world, she never heard about it. He finished the story. In other words, Soaring Heaven King Palace suffered a great loss because of you? Sir God Luo Sha's eyes squinted. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded again. I knew about this as well, Sir God Mad Dog spoke. Soaring Heaven King Palace has been barbaric and they never once suffered. But this time, not only did they suffer a great loss, they were embarrassed. They even became a laughingstock in Eternal Chaotic World. This is because of Jian Wushuang. I see. Sir God Luo Sha looked at Jian Wushuang again, but her gaze was different than before. Jian Wushuang, you can enter divine pond of absolute beginning and you can stay however long you want, Sir God Luo Sha said. Huh. Jian Wushuang was thrilled with excitement. And the price is? There's no price required. You can just enter. If there's only one condition, it's that after you increase your power, you'll kill that bastard Ling Yun on my behalf. Sir God Luo Sha bellowed as murderous intention soared in her eyes. Bastard Ling Yun? Jian Wushuang was stunned. He didn't even know who he was. Jian Wushuang, that bastard Ling Yun that Sir God Luo Sha was talking about is the founder of Soaring Heaven King Palace, Emperor God Ling Yun. Soaring Heaven King Palace has 2 Emperor Gods. Emperor God Ling Yun is the oldest and also the strongest. Compared to Star Palace Master from Lineage of Star, he should only be stronger, not weaker. Of course, if Star Palace Master were to perform the secret skill of Star Palace with his all, Emperor God Ling Yun could only run away hastily, Sir God Mad Dog said. Sir God Mad Dog was talking to Jian Wushuang via communication token. Then, Sir God Luo Sha didn't know what they were talking about. Judging from Sir God Luo Sha's look, the rumor should be real, Sir God Mad Dog sighed emotionally. Rumor? What rumor? Jian Wushuang asked. A rumor said that Sir God Luo Sha once had a loving husband, who was also a Sir God expert. The two of them were like a celestial couple. But then, somehow or other, Her husband was killed by Emperor God Lingyun. Sir God Luo Sha wanted to take revenge on Soaring Heaven King Palace badly once because of that. However, she was alone. She couldn't cause such a major force like Soaring Heaven King Palace to move, Sir God Mad Dog said. This happened long ago. Plus, Sir God Luo Sha never brought it up herself, so I didn't know if it was true or false. But from what it seems, it should be true. Jian Wushuang, you're lucky, Sir God Mad Dog teased. Jian Wushuang smiled. That was true. He couldn't pay the price that Sir God Luo Sha wanted. He thought he was predestined not to cross paths with Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, but who knew Sir God Luo Sha harbored such deep hatred against Soaring Heaven King Palace. Jian Wushuang had happened to fight against Soaring Heaven King Palace head-on, which had made them suffer great losses and became a laughingstock. It simply meant that he had vented Sir God Luo Sha's grievance. Jian Wushuang, Sir God Luo Sha looked at Jian Wushuang. You made Soaring Heaven King Palace suffer a great loss and they definitely won't let it slip. Back then, my husband merely taught the disciple of Soaring Heaven King Palace a lesson as he couldn't stand their barbaric behavior. Then Bastard Lingyun took action personally to kill my husband. My husband was naturally gifted. If it wasn't because of Bastard Lingyun, he would have become an emperor by now. You, in terms of potential, are not inferior to my husband. Soaring Heaven King Palace won't let you continue to grow. They definitely won't. So, show no mercy, don't win by luck or think that you might be able to resolve the resentment with Soaring Heaven King Palace. It is impossible, definitely impossible. What you need to do is to destroy Soaring Heaven King Palace entirely and kill all of them. Then, you can live in this world in peace. Jian Wushuang's face grew solemn. He knew that Sir God Luo Sha was speaking the truth. Soaring Heaven King Palace definitely wouldn't let it go. Between him and Soaring Heaven King Palace, there wasn't any possibility to resolve resentment. Soaring Heaven King Palace would definitely stop at nothing until he died. After quite some time, Sir God Luo Sha finally calmed down. Excuse me. Sorry that I lost control. Sir God Luo Sha's face became cold. Jian Wushuang, follow me. Sir God Luo Sha led Jian Wushuang and Sir God Mad Dog to the void at the back. Very soon, the three of them arrived at the core of the piece of floating land. It was covered within a prohibition and they could faintly see a pond. The pond wasn't huge in size but it looked rather deep. Jian Wushuang heard from Hall Master Jiu Xin back in Lineage of Star that Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning was 999,900 zhong deep. That is Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. You can enter directly. But remember, you must only absorb the power of Absolute Beginning. Don't touch or move the special prohibition or formation in the Divine Pond. The formation is extremely important to the Divine Pond. Once it's moved, the consequences will be disastrous, Sir God Luo Sha exhorted. I understand. Thank you Sir God Luo Sha, Jian Wushuang thanked her. Go ahead, Sir God Luo Sha waved her hand. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate and took a stride forward and plunged towards the Divine Pond. He arrived at the pond very soon. Old witch, you were quite generous this time. You let Jian Wushuang absorb the power of Absolute Beginning in Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning to his heart's content. He is an inverse cultivator. Aren't you afraid that he will finish up the power of Absolute Beginning? Sir God Mad Dog smiled. Humph, my Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning isn't as simple as you think it is. So what if he is an inverse cultivator? As long as he is capable, go ahead and absorb it. If he were to have the capability to absorb 1/100th of the Divine Pond, I'd think he was impressive, Sir God Luo Sha sneered. Plus, this young man embarrassed Soaring Heaven King Palace. Forget about the 100th power of Absolute Beginning, even if he took away 1/10th power of Absolute Beginning, I'd let him in. Because I am happy. Chapter 1705, Power of Absolute Beginning. Chapter 1705, Power of Absolute Beginning. Within the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, white pond water was flowing about. Jian Wushuang was inside the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning and only his head was left on top of the water. This is the power of Absolute Beginning. Jian Wushuang felt the white pond water thoroughly. It was pure and it did not have any impurities. It's too pure. Its power is even purer and in a greater amount than the demon cause power. Zhen Wushuang was surprised. Hall Master Ji Yuxin was right. The power of absolute beginning had to be the purest power in the eternal chaotic world. For such a power, not only could it be absorbed and changed into divine power, it also contained shocking recovery powers. It was no wonder that a dying emperor god had recovered to his peak after staying in the divine pond for 3 years. Let's try it. Zhen Wushuang attempted to absorb the power of absolute beginning at once. As he absorbed, the white pond water around him entered his body slowly. After that, with the heavenly creation skill active, the pond water started to transform. After just a short amount of time, a small bit of ultimate divine power, which was transformed from the power of absolute beginning, was formed. This speed of transformation, it's a lot faster than when I absorbed the demon cause. Moreover, in terms of quality, it is a lot better. The ultimate divine power that has been transformed from the power of absolute beginning that I have absorbed for this period of time is probably slightly higher than the amount I would get from absorbing a grade 3 demon core. Zhen Wushuang opened his eyes wide and they were filled with delight. Let's begin. Zhen Wushuang did not hesitate and he made the best use of his time immediately to start absorbing and transforming the power of absolute beginning in the divine pond. As he absorbed, the ultimate divine power in his body continued to increase. After that, the 11th droplet of ultimate divine power started to precipitate slowly. In just 3 days' time, the 11th ultimate divine power water droplet was precipitated. It's too fast. It has only been 3 days. Zhen Wushuang was over the moon. It should be known that if he had continued to rely on absorbing the demon cause, it would be unknown how many demon cores and how much time he would need to precipitate the 11th droplet of the ultimate divine power. However, in the divine pond of absolute beginning, he only took 3 days. Let's continue. With a frenzy of delight, Zhen Wushuang immersed himself completely into absorbing the power of absolute beginning. Time passed by slowly. In front of the bamboo house, Sir God Luo Sha and Sir God Mad Dog were sitting opposite each other, just like before. 10 years has already passed. However, Zhen Wushuang still has not come out of the divine pond of absolute beginning. In 10 years' time, I wonder how much power of absolute beginning he has absorbed. Old witch, doesn't your heart ache at all? Sir God Mad Dog laughed. Do you think that I am you? Sir God Luo Sha shot a glance toward Sir God Mad Dog. The divine power that an inverse cultivator needs has indeed exceeded my expectations. Hee. Sir God Mad Dog laughed strangely. After that, he flipped his hands and took out 2 white blaze fruits. He gave one of them to Sir God Luo Sha. This is a white blaze fruit. Sir God Luo Sha revealed a surprised expression. Old witch, don't say that I am reluctant. I only have a total of 2 white blaze fruits and they were given to me by Zhen Wushuang. Now, I'm giving one of them to you. Aren't I being a good person? Sir God Mad Dog laughed strangely. Sir God Luo Sha did not stand on ceremony and put the white blaze fruit into her Qian Kuan ring right away. As for Sir God Mad Dog, he held the white blaze fruit in his hands and started to eat it with huge bites. He looked like he was enjoying it. It's really a waste for the white blaze fruit to be in your hands. Sir God Luo Sha curled her lips. At the same time as these 2 Sir Gods were having a conversation. Outside the black void, a giant spaceship from the outside world was traveling slowly. In the spaceship, there were 4 figures and they were looking forward at the black void which was filled with dense fog. Among the 4 of them, the person at the front was a handsome young man who wore a luxurious purple long robe as well as a heartrending smile. That Sir God Luo Sha lives here? Haha, it's really a very remote location. It's indeed remote. A cold and gloomy old man who was beside him laughed. If your highness doesn't know, Sir God Luo Sha is an unsociable and eccentric person. Ever since her husband died, she hid herself from the world and she did not have any contact with the outside world. Even within the Sanctuary Alliance, there is probably less than 10 people who know where she lives. We have also spent a lot of effort and time to find this place. Oh, is that so? The handsome man raised the corners of his mouth and his smile became even more obvious. If Zhen Wushuang were present, he would definitely be extremely furious when he saw the handsome young man. As he was the person who was with Lung Rushue in the Blood Demon Church back then. His Highness Mu Hong. Back then, when Jian Wushuang had been fighting with His Highness Mu Hong head-on, he had come across the inverse cultivation test for the third heaven abruptly. In the end, he was trampled on by His Highness Mu Hong. How are the abilities of Sir God Luo Sha? His Highness Mu Hong questioned. She's very strong. Out of the Sir Gods, she should be at the top level. However, with our lineup, it will be easy to kill her. The cold and gloomy old man answered. For our mission this time around, killing Sir God Luo Sha is secondary. The most important thing is that divine pond of absolute beginning. The seventh palace master has instructed us that we must get the divine pond of absolute beginning at all costs. Even if we are unable to get it, we absolutely have to destroy it. If not, when a great battle breaks out in the future, the divine pond of absolute beginning will give two-mant benefits to the Sanctuary Alliance. The cold and gloomy old man was certain about how impressive the divine pond of absolute beginning was. A dying emperor god could recover to his peak after being in the divine pond of absolute beginning for 3 years. If Sir God Luo Sha were to use it without caring about anything else, the power of absolute beginning that had accumulated in the divine pond of absolute beginning could absolutely provide many almighties with divine power and also heal their injuries continuously. When the divine pond of absolute beginning had just formed, the higher-ups of the Sanctuary Alliance wanted to place it in the Thunderbolt Island. However, the divine pond of absolute beginning had long been like a treasure of Sir God Luo Sha and it was completely under her control. Without her consent, even the Sanctuary Alliance was unable to snatch it away with force. As such, they could only discuss some conditions with her. However, the condition that Sir God Luo Sha brought up was to kill Emperor God Ling Yun and destroy the Soaring Heaven King Palace. However, she was rejected by the Sanctuary Alliance. Therefore, in a fit of fury, Sir God Luo Sha brought the divine pond of absolute beginning along with her and left the Sanctuary Alliance. Since then, she has kept herself hidden from the world and has not come out. As such, the Sanctuary Alliance cannot do anything to her. However, it is fortunate that she possesses the divine pond of absolute beginning as this has given us an opportunity. If it were in the Thunderbolt Island, there would be nothing that we could do, the cold and gloomy old man laughed. Since the Sanctuary Alliance cannot control Sir God Luo Sha, we shall be the ones to do it. His Highness Mu Hong laughed coldly. Let's charge indirectly. With the order of His Highness Mu Hong, the ancient spaceship immediately charged forward into the black void, which was covered by a seal. It also moved at a shocking speed and headed toward the center of the dark void where a floating land was. Atop the piece of floating land, the expressions of Sir God Mad Dog and Sir God Luo Sha, who were originally having a conversation, changed abruptly. Chapter 1706, Sudden Change. Chapter 1706, Sudden Change. Someone barged in. There was a chilly gleam in Sir God Luo Sha's eyes. What? Sir God Mad Dog looked over with a surprised look. I set up a prohibition in the void. Even if there were to be someone who came to visit me, they would normally wait outside the prohibition and only enter after they received my permission. However, the people who came didn't receive my permission, Sir God Luo Sha said. Hong. There was a loud explosion in the nearby void. At the same time, there was a fierce divine aura that spread. Damn it. They already started to attack the prohibition. Although the prohibition that I've set up is not too shabby, a Sir God could forcefully break it if he were to hit it with all his power. Among the people who came, there is obviously someone who is good at formations. Sir God Luo Sha's voice was deep. In a short time, the prohibition that surrounded the floating land collapsed by force. Haha, Sir God Luo Sha, you have been living the life all these years. There was a burst of hearty laughter, then there were 4 figures who plunged over. The 4 of them let out powerful auras and they were already at Sir God level. 4 Sir Gods. Sir God Luo Sha's face grew grave. I have never seen the 4 Sir Gods in Sanctuary Alliance before. They are definitely not from Sanctuary Alliance. They are either from Holocaust Sect or Akron Palace. Sir God Mad Dog's gaze grew cold. In Eternal Chaotic World, Sanctuary Alliance was an absolute overlord, the supreme. There was no doubt about that. However, although Sanctuary Alliance was strong, there was a hidden enemy. Star Demon Clan in the 8th layer was just one of them. Plus, Star Demon Clan had only stayed within the 8th layer. As long as the number of Star Demon didn't reach a limit, they almost never would leave the 8th layer. Besides Star Demon's clan, there were many hidden forces that could pose a threat to Sanctuary Alliance. These hidden forces moved around the 10 sanctuaries. They moved within eternal chaotic world. Among the hidden forces, Holocaust Sect and Akron Palace were the strongest. Holocaust Sect frequently massacred large numbers of cultivators for their own benefit. They would even massacre to the extent of a world or even a holy kingdom. They were definitely one of the most vicious forces. They were also the public enemy of all cultivators. As for Akron Palace, they were the most treacherous and the most well-hidden force. They did not take action recklessly, but once they took action, the person who they were aiming at had almost zero possibility of staying alive. There were countless experts in Sanctuary Alliance who had died at the hands of Akron Palace. Back when Hall Master Yuan had told Jian Wushuang to be careful of the hidden forces, he was mainly warning him about Akron Palace. A genius like Jian Wushuang, Akron Palace normally wouldn't let him live for too long. They are here for Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, Sir God Luo Sha instantly understood. Old Mad Dog, I'm afraid I'll have to drag you in for this. Don't mention it. No matter if they are from Holocaust Sect of Akron Palace, they are enemies of Sanctuary Alliance, and public enemies of countless cultivators in eternal chaotic world. Although I am casual in manner most of the time, I do understand this principle, Sir God Mad Dog said in a low voice. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The 4 figures appeared in the void not far away, and they stood side by side but didn't launch attacks in the first instant. I never thought Mad Dog would be here as well. A treacherous elderly among the 4 of them squinted his eyes. Mad Dog isn't weak in power, and he definitely won't just sit and watch. He teams up with Sir God Luo Sha. It will be much more troublesome to deal with them. God Chi, God Ba, the 2 of you teamed up with me to fight against Sir God Luo Sha and this Mad Dog. Your Highness Mu Hong, we will have to trouble you for Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. No problem, Highness Mu Hong smiled and nodded. I originally thought if there was only Sir God Luo Sha alone, I'd like to fight with her and have some training. As they are in a team of 2. In order to save time, I shall not join the fight. Your Highness Mu Hong, if you want to train, there will be many opportunities in the future, the treacherous elderly smiled. Oh yeah, when Your Highness Mu Hong arrives at Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, it's best if you first check if there are other experts in Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, just in case. If there is, Your Highness Mu Hong, please instantly leave. If there isn't, please go according to our plan. Haha, don't worry. I'm not stupid. If there is a powerful Sir God or Emperor God absorbing power of Absolute Beginning in Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, I won't attack hastily, His Highness Mu Hong scoffed. Sir God Luo Sha controlled the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning long ago. If we want it, we definitely can't kill Sir God Luo Sha and have to catch her alive. As for the Mad Dog, we can kill him straight away. The treacherous elderly looked at his other 2 teammates. God Chi, God Ba, let's do this. Hong. The 4 Sir God experts moved at the same time. Among the 4 of them, there were 3 that instantly gave out fierce Sir God aura and their power pressed to all directions. Then, they pounded Sir God Luo Sha and Sir God Mad Dog like lightning. As for His Highness Mu Hong, he instantly flew in the direction where Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning was located. As the 4 Sir Gods moved, Sir God Luo Sha and Sir God Mad Dog moved as well. There was an extra pair of black gloves on Sir God Mad Dog's hand while the boundless Sir God aura soared up from his body. The aura was tainted with an angry rage. Wow! Sir God Mad Dog's body turned illusory. He originally was 1 figure, then he instantly became 3 figures. Just like 3 flowing lights, they burst out instantly and the 3 flowing lights waved their sharp claws simultaneously. There were 3 figures that performed at the same time, but they immediately merged together when the sharp claws flashed. Hualalala. The void was torn into pieces instantly. Sir God Luo Sha wielded a green soft sword and she was engulfed in a cloud of mist. The cloud of mist flew before her opponents and then the sword light flowed out. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. One sword light suddenly swept out after another. Every single stroke of sword light carried a billowing hatred. Hate, hate, hate. With extreme hatred. She looked as though she wanted to break their bones and scatter their ashes to the winds. Ha ha, old mad dog, I knew long ago that you had comprehended a power superposition skill. Now that I see it with my own eyes, you live up to the name. It's a pity that you are going to die in the end. The treacherous elderly, God Chi and God Ba, the three Sir God experts immediately greeted them by displaying their powerful skills. Their powers as Sir God experts were given full play by then. The five Sir Gods were fighting vigorously. However, although Sir God Luo Sha and Sir God Mad Dog were powerful, it was already pushing their limits for the two of them to hold back three Sir Gods. As for His Highness Mu Hong, who was going to Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, they couldn't do anything about it. Sir God Mad Dog had sent a message to Jian Wushuang long ago. Jian Wushuang, something happened. Hurry up and come out. Chapter 1707, Meeting His Highness Mu Hong Again. Chapter 1707, Meeting His Highness Mu Hong Again. While being shrouded by the infinite amount of pond water in the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, Jian Wushuang had closed both his eyes and was still doing his best to absorb the power of Absolute Beginning. The amount of divine power that an inverse cultivator needed to accumulate in the stage of real God had indeed exceeded Jian Wushuang's expectations. For the 100 droplets of ultimate divine power, with the more progress he had made, the harder it would be to precipitate the droplets at the back. Luckily, he was inside the divine pond of Absolute Beginning. If he had relied purely on absorbing the pure power of the demon cause or relied on his own training to accumulate, he could not imagine the amount of time he would take. To date, 10 years had passed. However, he was still quite far away from the maximum amount of ultimate divine power he could possess in his body. Gurgle tilde the power of Absolute Beginning was flowing about and it entered Jian Wushuang's body continuously. At present, the 88th ultimate divine power water droplet was precipitating slowly in Jian Wushuang's body. It's the 88th droplet. Jian Wushuang was filled with immeasurable joy. 88 droplets was only 12 droplets away from 100 droplets. Hence, it was already very close. If nothing goes wrong, in 2 or 3 years' time, my ultimate divine power can achieve its peak. At that time, I will be able to make a breakthrough to stage 3 ultimate real God, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. Just then, Sir God Mad Dog sent a message over to him. Jian Wushuang, something has happened. Come out quickly. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes fiercely. Sir God Mad Dog knew that he was training in the divine pond of Absolute Beginning. If there was nothing that was extremely urgent, he would definitely not disturb him. However, since Sir God Mad Dog had sent a message over, something big had definitely occurred. Swoosh. Jian Wushuang came out of the divine pond of Absolute Beginning immediately. However, when he appeared at the top of the void, he saw a figure that was speeding over from afar. Upon seeing the figure, Jian Wushuang was first stunned. After that, his eyes became filled with a great amount of murderous intent right away. His Highness Mu Hong, who Jian Wushuang was staring at, naturally saw Jian Wushuang as well. It's him. Haha, enemies are really bound to meet each other. His Highness Mu Hong raised his eyebrows. After that, he continued to move toward Jian Wushuang. At the start, when he saw that there was someone beside the divine pond of Absolute Beginning, he was shocked. However, when he was sure that the person was Jian Wushuang, he stopped having any worries. After all, Jian Wushuang was merely his defeated opponent. In the void, His Highness Mu Hong had already appeared in front of Jian Wushuang and he had stopped moving. He, Jian Wushuang, we meet again. His Highness Mu Hong looked at Jian Wushuang coldly and his eyes were filled with disdain. Jian Wushuang did not speak. However, his face was ice cold. The Blood Mountain sword then appeared on his hands and a great amount of murderous intent rose from his body slowly. Why? You still wish to fight with me? His Highness Mu Hong sneered. Seems like I did not trample on you for long enough back then. It's a pity that an unforeseen event occurred back then and you got away. However, this time round, you will not be so lucky. Let me ask you. Where is Lung Ruxue? Jian Wushuang spoke abruptly. His Highness Mu Hong was stunned. After that, his face became distorted and he spoke, "Damn it. Is Lung's name something trash like you can call out? Where is she? If you refuse to say, I will kill you." Jian Wushuang's voice sounded as though it came from an abysmal hell. Moreover, his body was also approached His Highness Mu Hong slowly. For every step he took, the god power and murderous intent on his body would be stronger. At the start, His Highness Mu Hong did not care about Jian Wushuang at all. However, as Jian Wushuang walked toward him step by step, especially with that huge pressure that was exerted on him such that he was actually suffocating slightly, he started to feel fearful. "H, you are just a piece of trash. Since you have been trampled by me at another time, it will also be the same this time round." His Highness Mu Hong glowed with a shrill light and he released his aura of a Sir God immediately. A green sickle also appeared in his hands. His body then turned vague and layers upon layers of green shadows burst forth at once. As for Jian Wushuang, he just looked on coldly as His Highness Mu Hong attacked him. When he had come across His Highness Mu Hong in the Blood Demon Church the other time, he had merely been a universe god of the second heaven. As for His Highness Mu Hong, he had already made a breakthrough to become a void real god. At that time, when they had come across each other again, Jian Wushuang was a stage 2 ultimate real god while His Highness Mu Hong, for whatever reason, had somehow made a breakthrough to Sir God and he had entered the ranks of the Sir Gods. It was a similar encounter and a similar gap in terms of realm. However, the different thing was that the inverse cultivation test would no longer descend abruptly for Jian Wushuang. Trash, go to hell. His Highness Mu Hong's murderous intent burst forth and an infinite amount of green light appeared from his body. The green light then gathered around his body and changed into a gigantic green god. After that, His Highness Mu Hong swung the green sickle in his hands fiercely. At once, a brilliant green sickle river materialized. During the process, the green sickle river expanded at a shocking speed and it covered the whole universe in the end. The frightening sickle essence that the sickle river contained also seemed to be able to tear everything in the universe apart. Jian Wushuang took a step forward and raised the Blood Mountain sword in his hands abruptly. His vast amount of divine power was then poured into the long sword without any restraint. In the void, crimson sword shadows appeared out of thin air and every one of them was so strong that it was shocking. Moreover, there was a total of 61 of them. The 61 crimson sword shadows then superimposed onto one another and fused. With that, a destructive power spread across the area. Swish! The crimson sword shadow was swung out straight away. It then split the space, time and heaven. The brilliant sickle river which was in front of Jian Wushuang was destroyed instantly and the shocking sword essence continued to wreak havoc by tearing open many holes that were tens of thousands of miles big in the surrounding void. The whole universe was submerged by the shocking sword essence. Swoosh! A figure retreated quickly from the void that the sword essence shrouded. It was His Highness Mu Hong. However, when His Highness Mu Hong just regained his posture, he saw that the void in front of him had collapsed abruptly. After that, an ancient giant finger which contained an earth-shaking power pointed toward him right away. Ancient God's sixth finger, sun corrosion. Since Jian Wushuang had already precipitated a total of 88 ultimate divine power water droplets in his body, the amount of divine power in his body was a lot greater than that in the Almighty's. With such a huge amount of divine power, Jian Wushuang was absolutely not worried about its depletion. As such, he could unleash many strong moves and unique skills without the slightest scruple. Break! With a cry, the green god which covered His Highness Mu Hong gave an extremely loud roar. After that, with a violent swing of the sickle on His Highness Mu Hong's hands, fierce winds sprang up and changed into a sickle shadow storm which covered an enormous area. The sickle shadow storm struck the ancient giant finger and both of them turned into dust. However, just then, swish! A ray of golden light which was dragging its long, golden tail like a comet headed toward His Highness Mu Hong quietly. What? His Highness Mu Hong was shocked. It was obvious that the ray of golden light had appeared too abruptly. Chapter 1704, Sir God Luo Shao's Enmity. Chapter 1704, Sir God Luo Shao's Enmity. Although I was the one who got the white blaze fruit tree, it is extremely useful to lineage of star. I can't exchange a white blaze fruit tree for an opportunity to enter divine pond of absolute beginning. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes. Sir God Luo Shao, is there no other possibility? Another possibility? Yes, Sir God Luo Shao suddenly looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, I read the information recorded on Real God ranking list. It is said that you once injured Sir God Chen Lan. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. Sir God Chen Lan is an almighty from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Why would he fight with you? Sir God Luo Shao asked. It was because, when I was wandering in the 8th lair, I killed one expert after another from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Jian Wushuang briefly shared his story of the 8th lair. Actually, many experts in Eternal Chaotic World knew about the story. However, as Sir God Luo Shao was secluded from the outside world, she never heard about it. He finished the story. In other words, Soaring Heaven King Palace suffered a great loss because of you? Sir God Luo Shao's eyes squinted. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded again. I knew about this as well, Sir God Mad Dog spoke. Soaring Heaven King Palace has been barbaric and they never once suffered. But this time, not only did they suffer a great loss, they were embarrassed. They even became a laughingstock in Eternal Chaotic World. This is because of Jian Wushuang. I see. Sir God Luo Shao looked at Jian Wushuang again, but her gaze was different than before. Jian Wushuang, you can enter Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning and you can stay however long you want, Sir God Luo Shao said. Huh. Jian Wushuang was thrilled with excitement. And the price is? There's no price required. You can just enter. If there's only one condition, it's that after you increase your power, you'll kill that bastard Lingyun on my behalf. Sir God Luo Shao bellowed as murderous intention soared in her eyes. Bastard Lingyun? Jian Wushuang was stunned. He didn't even know who he was. Jian Wushuang, that bastard Lingyun that Sir God Luo Shao was talking about is the founder of Soaring Heaven King Palace, Emperor God Lingyun. Soaring Heaven King Palace has 2 Emperor Gods. Emperor God Lingyun is the oldest and also the strongest. Compared to Star Palace Master from lineage of Star, he should only be stronger, not weaker. Of course, if Star Palace Master were to perform the secret skill of Star Palace with his all, Emperor God Lingyun could only run away hastily, Sir God Mad Dog said. Sir God Mad Dog was talking to Jian Wushuang via communication token. Then, Sir God Luo Shao didn't know what they were talking about. Judging from Sir God Luo Shao's look, the rumor should be real, Sir God Mad Dog sighed emotionally. Rumor? What rumor? Jian Wushuang asked. A rumor said that Sir God Luo Shao once had a loving husband, who was also a Sir God expert. The two of them were like a celestial couple. But then, somehow or other, her husband was killed by Emperor God Lingyun. Sir God Luo Shao wanted to take revenge on Soaring Heaven King Palace badly once because of that. However, she was alone. She couldn't cause such a major force like Soaring Heaven King Palace to move, Sir God Mad Dog said. This happened long ago. Plus, Sir God Luo Shao never brought it up herself, so I didn't know if it was true or false. But from what it seems, it should be true. Jian Wushuang, you're lucky, Sir God Mad Dog teased. Jian Wushuang smiled. That was true. He couldn't pay the price that Sir God Luo Shao wanted. He thought he was predestined not to cross paths with Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, but who knew Sir God Luo Shao harbored such deep hatred against Soaring Heaven King Palace? Jian Wushuang had happened to fight against Soaring Heaven King Palace head-on, which had made them suffer great losses and became a laughingstock. It simply meant that he had vented Sir God Luo Shao's grievance. Jian Wushuang, Sir God Luo Shao looked at Jian Wushuang. You made Soaring Heaven King Palace suffer a great loss and they definitely won't let it slip. He had almost no chance to counterattack. Plus, the golden light hit him repeatedly and every hit caused enormous power that shook the divine body. From the continuous hits, he was already injured. If it persisted, he would be killed by Jian Wushuang. If he is here, it'll be impossible for me to get the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. As I can't get it, I can only forcibly destroy it. There was a chilly gleam in His Highness Mu Hong's eyes. He flipped his hand and there were 2 pearls covered in faint black thunder in his hand. His father passed him the 2 pearls. They were specially prepared for the mission that day. Its name was God-destroying. His father exhorted that if they couldn't take the divine pond of absolute beginning, he should use the 2 God-destroying pearls to destroy the divine pond of absolute beginning. They couldn't get it and they couldn't let the divine pond of absolute beginning fall into the hands of Sanctuary Alliance. God-destroying pearl is powerful. One should be enough to destroy the divine pond of absolute beginning. As for the remaining one, the boundless murderous intention shimmered in His Highness Mu Hong's eyes as he looked at Jian Wushuang directly. He slashed with his green sickle and shot the golden light aiming at him. He retreated, but it happened to be where Jian Wushuang was. Jian Wushuang, die. Then, His Highness Mu Hong extended his palm and 2 black lights burst out at the same time. The 2 black lights, one went towards the divine pond of absolute beginning while the other one aimed at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's eyes fixed. The moment the black light aimed at him, he had already realized something wasn't right, especially as the pearl was letting out faint black thunder. He sensed an extremely terrifying power. The power struck fear into him. Back off. Without hesitation, Jian Wushuang retreated swiftly. As he retreated, he pointed with his finger and there was sword light that struck the God-destroying pearl like lightning. The God-destroying pearl was far away from Jian Wushuang and His Highness Mu Hong intended to throw it before Jian Wushuang. But then, as the sword light hit it, it instantly exploded. Hong! Hong! 2 vigorous explosions roared simultaneously. The noise shook heaven and earth. The power that it brought about could shock every living thing in the universe. Jian Wushuang had already fallen back to somewhere far away and the explosion of God-destroying pearl didn't affect him. However, whatever happened before his eyes was daunting to him. He knew clearly that he was lucky to escape the explosions of the 2 pearls. Otherwise, even if he wasn't dead, he would be in a miserable condition. Millimeter. Jian Wushuang's face suddenly changed and he looked at the divine pond of absolute beginning. The earlier 2 pearls, one went towards the divine pond of absolute beginning and exploded directly. From the explosion of the pearl, the divine pond of absolute beginning became too horrible to look at. Chapter 1709, Kill. Chapter 1709, Kill. Damn it. Upon seeing that more than half of the divine pond of absolute beginning had disappeared due to the attack from the God-destroying pearl and that most of the prohibitions and formations had been destroyed as well, Jian Wushuang's expression turned unusually ugly. You deserve to die. Jian Wushuang was filled with murderous intent. All of a sudden, his body became 10 meters tall and the aura on his body became more than twice as strong. In the space between his eyebrows, there were 6 stars and he had impressive god power. Ancient god secret skill, thunder attracting skill, boom. All of a sudden, a giant crack appeared in the quiet sky and a total of 9 giant sacred thunders descended from it. At the same time, the 2 Hong Jun golden swords which were floating in the void trembled crazily and headed toward His Highness Mu Hong, one from the left and the other one from the right. Not good. This Jian Wushuang is actually not dead. His Highness Mu Hong's face was filled with fear. In particular, when he saw the 2 Hong Jun golden swords which were heading toward him at the same time, he shook with terror. Run. Without any hesitation, His Highness Mu Hong did his best to escape straight away. As for the Sir God-level black battle puppet, he left it behind to block Jian Wushuang. The 9 sacred thunders that descended from the heavens were unable to be aimed at His Highness Mu Hong in time. As such, it could only attack the black battle puppet together with the 2 Hong Jun golden swords. In just a short amount of time, the Sir God-level battle puppet was defeated. With a wave of Jian Wushuang's big hands, the damaged battle puppet was put into his Qian Kuan ring. It's impossible for you to run away. Jian Wushuang had an overwhelming amount of murderous intent. As he looked at His Highness Mu Hong who was still within his line of vision, his body turned vague and a great number of shadows appeared at the same time. With that, his speed achieved his peak instantly. Other than being struck with terror, His Highness Mu Hong was running away with all his might. After just an instant, he had already escaped to the other battlefield. "Save me, please save me quickly." Even though His Highness Mu Hong had just arrived at that battlefield, his mad cry for help had already spread. What? The three Sir Gods, the gloomy old man, God Chi, and God Ba were currently fighting an intense battle with Sir God Luo Sho and Sir God Mad Dog. Moreover, they were in a very advantageous position. However, after hearing the cries for help, the expressions of the three of them changed greatly at the same time. The gloomy old man gave up on dealing with Sir God Mad Dog immediately and headed for His Highness Mu Hong right away. "Your Highness Mu Hong, what's wrong?" The gloomy old man appeared beside His Highness Mu Hong. "It's Zhen Wushuang. He's hunting me down." His Highness Mu Hong roared repeatedly. The gloomy old man turned his head at once and just happened to see Zhen Wushuang, whose face was filled with murderous intent, coming over. "Zhen Wushuang is actually here as well?" The gloomy old man's expression turned grave and he asked straight away, "Your Highness, what about the divine pond of absolute beginning?" "It has been destroyed," His Highness Mu Hong said. "That's good." The gloomy old man heaved a sigh of relief. Although they did not manage to snatch the divine pond of absolute beginning away, their mission was considered complete since the divine pond of absolute beginning had been destroyed. "We have completed our mission. Stop dealing with them and let's leave quickly." The gloomy old man gave a shrill cry. After that, the two Sir Gods, God Chi and God Ba, who were still in combat, retreated immediately. "It's not that easy to escape." Sir God Luo Sho's face was filled with madness. At that time, her whole person was within the dense fog, and the dense fog covered a great area of the universe. Moreover, the sword principles, which contained a tremendous amount of extreme hatred, burst forth repeatedly with the intention of keeping the Sir Gods in front back. "All of you shall stay here." Similarly, Sir God Mad Dog unleashed an enormous amount of evil aura, and he had already changed into an exotic beast. Moreover, the exotic beast was extremely gigantic. It was more than 100 feet tall and it had a total of 6 claws. Its frightening murderous intent also covered a humongous area and it was earth-shaking. "Retreat quickly." The gloomy old man and the 3 remaining people absolutely did not have the intention of staying behind and dealing with him. After all, they were Sir God experts and there was a total of 4 of them. If they really wanted to escape, it would be difficult for Sir God Luo Sho and Sir God Mad Dog to keep them back. However, at that moment, "All of you, don't think that any of you can escape." All of a sudden, a voice which was filled with shocking murderous intent and anger resounded across the universe. It was Zhen Wushuang who had arrived at the battlefield. His eyes were evil like an enraged ferocious beast and he was staring at the 4 Sir Gods in front who were preparing to leave persistently. To be more exact, he was staring at His Highness Mu Hong. Anyone could leave. However, His Highness Mu Hong alone had to remain. Even if he could not be captured alive, he had to be killed. It was not just because of the fact that His Highness Mu Hong had destroyed the divine pond of absolute beginning. It was also not because of the fact that His Highness Mu Hong had trampled on him back then in the Blood Demon Church. Instead, it was because His Highness Mu Hong had actually called Lung Rushua Langer. What an intimate way of calling her. Perhaps the person who he had called was Lung Rushua and it was unrelated to Lung Rushuang, who was Zhen Wushuang's wife. Or perhaps Lung Rushua had never paid any attention to His Highness Mu Hong at all. However, His Highness Mu Hong obviously had the intention to get close to Lung Rushua. And the body that Lung Rushua possessed was the body of Lung Rushuang. Anyone who touched the forbidden lamella of a dragon had to die. Lung Rushua was his forbidden lamella. Ancient god secret skill. Moon-picking skill. Buzz. The void shook. All of a sudden, a peculiar power took effect on the void and in a split second, rustle, the void collapsed into pieces at a speed that naked eyes could not perceive. At the same time, the power spread toward the 4 Sir Gods, His Highness Mu Hong, the gloomy old man, God Chi, and God Ba. With that, the bodies of the 4 Sir Gods shook and their eyes revealed a bit of fear at the same time. At that moment, the whole universe, heaven, space, and time headed toward the 4 of them with the intention of crushing them completely into fine powder. It was as if they were being repelled by the universe, space, and time. It was as if they should not have existed in the world. It was too strange. Moreover, the most important thing was that it was impossible to block the attack. The frightening crushing power unleashed its effects straight away. Out of the 4 Sir Gods, His Highness Mu Hong was actually the weakest. After withstanding the repelling power for not long, he spit out a mouthful of blood right away. As for the remaining 3 of them, under the suppression of space and time, their expressions became a lot paler. However, just as the repelling power of space and time was about to dissipate, 2 brilliant rays of golden light lit up abruptly. The places that they lit up were beside His Highness Mu Hong. One was in front while the other one was behind him. "Your Highness, please be careful." Upon realizing that, the gloomy old man warned him immediately. However, at such a close distance, even with a warning, it was already too late. His Highness Mu Hong had opened his eyes wide and he was looking at the rays of golden light in front of him which were expanding in size continuously. He was totally unable to react and his mind was completely empty. That was the result of him growing up in a greenhouse. If it were a Sir God who had grown up in the face of terror, he might still be able to react upon seeing the 2 rays of golden light. At the very least, he would be able to unleash some defensive moves. However, His Highness Mu Hong was just a dimwit. At that moment, he was completely stunned and he did not resist at all. Chapter 1710, Damaged. Chapter 1710, Damaged. Pest. Pest. There were 2 rays of golden light. One ray went through His Highness Mu Hong's chest and the other ray pierced through his head. The power contained in the golden light instantly exterminated His Highness Mu Hong's vigor. His Highness Mu Hong stood there like a silly man but his consciousness had already dispersed. Looking at the sight, the treacherous elders, God Chi and God Ba's, faces grew pale. They knew clearly the identity of His Highness Mu Hong. They also knew of the terrifying existence behind his back. At first, the mission that day was merely for His Highness Mu Hong to have some experience. Because of him, they had even dispatched 3 Sir God experts to safeguard him. On top of that, His Highness Mu Hong had had the war puppet too. There was in total 4 Sir Gods that safeguarded him, and His Highness Mu Hong was a Sir God himself. With such a formation, theoretically, there shouldn't be any accident. But in the end, His Highness Mu Hong had died. In front of them, he was killed. "How dare you? Jian Wushuang, just you wait. What happened today won't end so easily. For His Highness Mu Hong's death, someone will look for you and take revenge." The treacherous elderly's roar shook the earth while he brought His Highness Mu Hong's dead body with him and ran away with the other 2 Sir Gods. Jian Wushuang didn't continue to chase after them but watched them leave. The void finally quieted down again. "Jian Wushuang, well done." Sir God Mad Dog's voice seemed a little surprised. "Wushuang, very impressive," Sir God Luo Shuo said. When the 4 Sir Gods had run away at the same time, although the 2 of them had tried their best, they couldn't make any one of them stay back. But Jian Wushuang had performed a great trick and killed one of them. The person seemed to be the most important person. Jian Wushuang shook his head when he heard what they said. "It's a pity that my power is slightly weaker. If my comprehension towards any one of space-time doctrine and reincarnation doctrine were to break through and pass the 7th level of Doctrine Palace, or if I were to break through and become a Stage 3 ultimate real god, I could make all of them stay back. But, it's good that I could make one stay. At least we didn't let all them retreat in a complete troop," Jian Wushuang thought to himself. "Oh yeah, the divine pond of absolute beginning." Jian Wushuang suddenly spoke. Sir God Luo Shuo's face changed and she immediately plunged in the direction where the divine pond of absolute beginning was located. Jian Wushuang and Sir God Mad Dog followed. When they were near to the divine pond of absolute beginning, Sir God Luo Shuo's face grew pale but she immediately rushed into the divine pond. Jian Wushuang and Sir God Mad Dog stayed in the void above the divine pond as they overlooked the sight below. The 2 of them looked awful too. They could tell that the divine pond of absolute beginning was severely damaged. Not only was more than half of the pond gone, an enormous amount of the power of absolute beginning in the pond was vanishing into thin air as well. At that point, There was about 30% of the power gone and they continued to disperse. It's due to the formation, Sir God Mad Dog explained. I heard from Sir God Sha Luo before that the divine pond of absolute beginning developed and evolved from one drop of power of absolute beginning. The evolution of power of absolute beginning is carried out with a unique formation. However, a lot of the formations are damaged and even collapsed. The balance cycle of the divine pond of absolute beginning was interrupted. Not only did the evolvement slow, it was declining. If she doesn't repair the formation in time, the power of absolute beginning will evaporate. Jian Wushuang's face grew grave when he heard that. Very soon, Sir God Luo Sha plunged out of the divine pond. Sir God Luo Sha, how is it? Sir God Mad Dog asked closely. At such a crucial moment, he didn't have the mood to make a joke with Sir God Luo Sha and make fun of her by calling her old witch. A large amount of formations in the divine pond are damaged. Fortunately, the evolution formation merely shattered by half, so there's a possibility to recover it. The core of the divine pond isn't damaged either. I have temporarily steadied the divine pond so that the power of absolute power won't continue to evaporate. However, it is only for temporary. I have to immediately invite experts who are good at formations to come over to recover this, Sir God Luo Sha said. The damage is so severe. Sir God Mad Dog's voice was low. I have to take the blame. Jian Wushuang blamed himself. The Sir God that I killed was important to me because he most likely knows the whereabouts of my wife. That's why I didn't want to kill him at first and only wanted to capture him alive. But I didn't know. Jian Wushuang did feel very sorry. Sir God Luo Sha didn't need him to pay anything but let him absorb the power of absolute beginning in the divine pond of absolute beginning. However, due to an unexpected incident, his selfish thought had led to the divine pond of absolute beginning being very nearly ruined. One should know that if he were to kill His Highness Mu Hong right at the beginning with his skills, there wouldn't be a scene where the divine pond was damaged. I can understand your feelings. I don't blame you for what happened. Sir God Luo Sha shook her head. She was an emotional person herself. Her husband's death had driven her insane too. Jian Wushuang had also turned irrational because of his wife. Most importantly, Jian Wushuang had never thought His Highness Mu Hong would have two god-destroying pearls that were so powerful. When he responded, it was already too late. He could only take revenge on His Highness Mu Hong and kill him. Jian Wushuang, originally, you could stay as long as you wanted in this divine pond, even until your divine power reached the ultimate achievement. But now, the divine pond is damaged and I have to get someone to fix it immediately. So, for quite a long time, there won't be anyone who enters the divine pond. You will have to wait until the divine pond resumes its normal operation. In short, I can't let you continue to absorb the power of absolute beginning, Sir God Luo Sha said. I have gained a great harvest from the divine pond. I, Jian Wushuang, definitely won't forget your favor. As for the rest of the accumulation of divine power, I'll work hard on my own, Jian Wushuang said. Sir God Luo Sha nodded faintly. Oh yeah, you are so well hidden. Even in Sanctuary Alliance, there are less than 10 people who know your whereabouts. How did the people find out where you are? Sir God Mad Dog creased his eyebrows and asked. Who knows? Holocaust Sect and Akron Palace, Humph, no one knows the tricks of those two hated parties. Luckily, the two of you happened to be here with me. Otherwise, with me alone, I'm afraid I couldn't save the divine pond, nor would I still be alive, Sir God Luo Sha humphed coldly. Sir God Luo Sha, Sir God Mad Dog sounded very serious. Holocaust Sect and Akron Palace found your location and locked their target at the divine pond of absolute beginning. In the near future, you would definitely live in chaos. My advice to you is that you discuss with the few people from Sanctuary Alliance. Sir God Luo Sha squinted her eyes slightly when she heard that. Chapter 1711, Fly into a Rage. Chapter 1711, Fly into a Rage. This was a crimson world. The sky contained a crimson sun. At the center of the crimson world, there was a bloody hole. It was a lofty hall. On the walls of the big hall, there were many gigantic and hideous faces. The eyes of the faces were so sinister and vicious that they made people fearful of them. The three Sir God experts, the gloomy old man, God Chi, and God Ba were in the big hall. However, at present, the three of them no longer had the airs of superiority of a Sir God expert. On the contrary, they were on their knees and bowing down. It was to the extent that they knelt down straight away and they were trembling in fear. There was no other reason. The only reason was that His Highness Mu Hong had died. Died. Honger has actually died. A golden-robed figure was sitting down at the highest position of the big hall. He wore a crimson ghost mask and his looks could not be seen clearly. However, the gloomy, shocking murderous intent that he was currently releasing had caused the three Sir Gods below to shiver in fear. The mission this time around is not considered too difficult. By my logic, if we were to send two Sir God experts over, as long as they were careful, they would also be able to complete the mission. However, I sent the three of you and Honger there. Do you know why I did that? The strange eyes that the golden-robed figure revealed were looking down at the three people. The three of them was shaking in fear. Of course, they knew the reason why the Lord in front of them had sent them there. It was naturally to protect and assist His Highness Mu Hong. However, in the end, although Honger has died, the three of them survived. The golden-robed figure struck the seat with his hands and an invisible power spread across the area. Puff, puff, puff. At that moment, the three Sir Gods who were kneeling down in the big hall spit out blood at the same time and their expressions turned deathly pale immediately. However, such a situation did not cause the three of them to tremble in fear. Instead, they were quite happy. Because they were still alive. Thank you, Lord, for sparing us, the three of them kowtowed and said gratefully. If not for now being a critical period and the fact that I lack people, the three of you would have died. An ice-cold voice could be heard from the golden-robed figure. The person who killed Honger, was that Jian Wushuang? It's him, the gloomy old man who was kneeling down on the ground continued speaking. This Jian Wushuang is a lot stronger than what the real God ranking list has introduced him to be. It is obvious that his abilities have risen again during this short hundreds of years of time and the current him is probably considered extremely strong among the Sir God. Ha, Jian Wushuang. When I heard his name last time, it was when his identity as an inverse cultivator was exposed. At that time, he had merely achieved the fighting capabilities of an eternal real God. From then to now, how long has it been? He has actually gotten himself established among the Sir Gods. If we were to give him another period of time, wouldn't I be unable to do anything against him as well? What about the Akron Palace? Could it be that the Akron Palace is sitting by and doing nothing? With such a huge threat present, they have still not gotten rid of it. Could it be that they really want to wait for him to become a great emperor who is an extremely high level before taking action? The golden-robed figure was roaring. His voice was so loud that it echoed within the big hall continuously. Please go and send a message to the Akron Palace. If the Akron Palace is really that useless, then they can simply become the Holocaust sect's underling and take orders from us. The Holocaust sect shall then be the one to deal with Jian Wushuang. If the Akron Palace is still of some use, they had better kill Jian Wushuang while it's still early. I will only give them 1,000 years of time. Within 1,000 years, if Jian Wushuang were to not die, I shall cut the connections between the Holocaust sect and the Akron Palace. In the dark starry sky, there was a dark land floating about. Many lofty mountains stood tall and upright on the land. The mountains were 1,000,000 feet tall. Even the smallest one was more than 100,000 feet tall. At the center of the mountains, there was a dark divine hall which was floating quietly in the air. Within the vast hall, guards who were covered by dim light were standing tall and upright. Under the eyes of those guards, a black-robed figure came to the big hall and reported some information. Oh, the son of the Holocaust sect's 7th Palace Master has died. And he was killed by Jian Wushuang. A deep, hoarse voice reverberated within the big hall. Although the voice seemed to come from all directions, the speaker had never shown himself. His son has always been a piece of trash. If he is dead, it means that he has really died. However, the 7th Palace Master actually unleashed his fury on the Akron Palace. What a joke. However, This matter has also given us a reminder. Jian Wushuang, his speed of improvement is too fast. Hundreds of years ago, he merely wounded Sir God Qianlan fatally in the 8th lair. However, at that time, Sir God Qianlan did not go all out, nor did he fight with all his might. Comparing abilities, he was not weaker than Jian Wushuang. However, now, in just a short few hundreds of years, he killed a Sir God. Moreover, he killed the Sir God while he was under the protection of 3 Sir Gods. With such a fast speed of improvement, if the Acheron Palace wishes to kill him, it will soon be too late. Looks like we can no longer place our hopes on the soaring Heaven King Palace. We have to be the ones to do it ourselves. Moreover, we have to do it immediately. The Acheron Palace had always been hidden extremely deeply within the darkness, and they would not take action easily. Moreover, they would not take action unless there was a need to. Previously, they had thought that since Jian Wushuang was fighting with the soaring Heaven King Palace, they would leave them to continue fighting and let the soaring Heaven King Palace kill Jian Wushuang. However, at that time, they had to do it themselves. Devise a plan to assassinate Jian Wushuang immediately. Moreover, for the devised plan, there must be more than a 90% chance of assassinating him successfully. Within 1,000 years, we must complete the assassination of Jian Wushuang. The Acheron Palace will not allow such a top genius to continue living even for another 1,000 years, the hoarse, deep voice ordered. All right, the respectful black-robed man who was awaiting his orders nodded his head. After that, he started to make preparations. The Acheron Palace was definitely a dark powerhouse that the Sanctuary Alliance was most worried about. Its level of threat was even higher than that of the Holocaust sect. After all, although the Holocaust sect was evil and they would massacre wantonly, the people who they massacred were mostly weaklings. However, the Acheron Palace focused on assassinating higher-ups of the Sanctuary Alliance as well as geniuses. Furthermore, as soon as the Acheron Palace set themselves to killing a person and devised an assassination plan in detail, the probability of the expert surviving the assassination would definitely be less than 10%. At that moment, the Acheron Palace had started to devise the assassination plan to assassinate Jian Wushuang. As for Jian Wushuang, he was completely clueless about it. He knew that the talents and potential that he had revealed would definitely attract the attention of some dark powerhouses. However, he did not know that the dark powerhouses would think so highly of him. Moreover, he did not have a very good understanding of the techniques and abilities of the dark powerhouses. However, as he had made ample preparations and was vigilant, he was not that afraid of them. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,